This is a podcast about our lived experience, which unfortunately includes infant death and subsequent mental health struggles. Please take good care of yourself and only listen if this content feels safe for you right now. We'll still be here when you're ready.
Hi, I'm Judith.
And I'm Alina. We both lost babies to SIDS in winter 2021.
In the throes of grief, I reached out to a stranger on the internet and our friendship was born.
In the years since, we've been working hard to survive, rebuild, and navigate the continual challenges that have come our way, including divorce,
Job loss,
dating while bereaved,
moving multiple times,
health scares,
pregnancy and parenting a living child,
starting new jobs, and so much more.
We are tired.
Happily ever after is out of the question for us, but this podcast documents our journeys to happier ever after because we believe life after loss is worth living.
So join us as we laugh, cry until we laugh.
Welcome to As Long as I'm Living podcast.
We're so glad you're here.
Yeah, let's get into it.
Let's do it. So our topic is blah, blah, trauma. Blah, blah, trauma. So let's talk about it.
I am sick to death of grieving. I'm over it. I'm fucking sick of it. I've done enough days and I'm over it. And you know what else? Everybody in my life is fucking sick of me grieving and is fucking over it and is fucking ready for me to move on with my life just like I am.
I agree.
Everybody is.
You got a text message from someone that you love very much, and we have to give this person full benefit of the doubt that they just snapped. They were in a point of anger. Grievers are assholes. Like something triggered them by your response. And can you tell me roughly what the text said without getting into it?
I basically got a text that said, I don't even know.
Ignore just that one line.
I know. It was something like, I know, trauma, blah, blah, blah.
Like the person was angry at you for
blah,
something.
Blah, 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 blah.
They were saying to you.
The situation was essentially that I didn't do something that I should have done. And the reason was because my brain is broken. And I don't want to negate my responsibility in my life. Like I'm still an adult and I still have things I need to do in my life. But the people that care about me, I'm just not the same person I used to be and I never will be. But this response was very much it was like this person was trying to preempt what was obviously going to be my response, which is, well, yeah, I'm broken because I'm traumatized. My brain doesn't work the same way. And this person was just like, I know, trauma, blah, 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 blah.
I feel like the person was saying the quiet part out loud. The person was saying something that I think a lot of people in our lives are thinking. I think even people who are followers on our Instagram page from our normal lives, let's say, that aren't necessarily active podcast listeners, have thought in their head where they're sliding through our Instagram and they think to themselves like, oh, they're still talking about it. Trauma, blah, blah.
Blah, blah, blah. We
blah,
get
blah,
it.
blah, blah, blah. We get it.
Blah,
You're
blah,
traumatized.
blah, blah, blah.
Yes. And I'll say that I had a similar experience over break with my mother. And my mother, we were talking about the podcast. But actually what happened is my mother was trying to understand the difference between my astrologer, my medium, my therapist. Like she was trying to understand. She's like, well, what are you talking about? Like a medium? I thought you were meeting with an astrologer. Like she was trying to figure it all out. Which I understand is confusing. But I said to her, I was like, well, there was a podcast episode about the medium. Like you could, didn't you listen to it? And she said, oh, Judith, I don't listen to the podcast anymore. It takes me back to a place that I don't want to be in. AKA trauma, blah, blah.
Trauma, blah, blah, blah.
Trauma, blah, blah. You're still talking about that? I've moved on. My mother is a lovely, wonderful, kind-hearted person, but who loves me very much and loves Aiden very much. But that's
I want to be clear that the person who said that thing to me also loves me very much and loves Quinn very much. And I think I'm not the person that this person doesn't listen to the podcast, this person who I'm talking about in my life. So I don't need to worry that they're going to hear this and feel attacked or whatever. And I know they feel terrible. We've had a conversation. They apologize, blah, blah, blah. I think the reason we're talking about this is because I think what you said, this is the quiet part out loud. This is what everybody in our lives is thinking. And I just want to say, me too. I am so sick of being traumatized, even myself. And I hate that now I have this little snappy language. Oh, trauma, blah, blah, blah. Because now in my own head, I'll be like today I'm having a bad day and I'm like, oh, Alina, trauma, blah, 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 blah. Whatever. Like now it's like this refrain in my head anytime I'm feeling bad.
I say it too. I say it too in my
trauma,
head.
blah, blah, blah.
I don't think this person realized that they have become a voice in my head, but I say it all the time. Like I'll hear myself be like, oh my God, Judith, I want to smash my head into a piece of concrete, which is a thought that sometimes I do have.
Yeah.
I had this morning. I was like, my life is so hard. I'm just so frustrated. I want to smash. And then I'll be like, Judith, we get it. Trauma, blah, blah,
Blah, blah, blah.
trauma, blah, 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 blah,
Blah,
blah,
blah,
blah,
blah,
blah,
blah,
blah, blah, blah. We get it. And I think, like, honestly, I don't actually think it does us a service. I think that it's mean to ourselves.
It's very mean. It's not
very mean.
compassionate. The text I received was not compassionate, and now it's turned into a lack of self-compassion because I hear it in my head and it's become my own inner voice, and it's not. And to be honest, like that was already a part of my inner voice. I didn't have those like pithy words, but that was what I was thinking already at this point in the loss. Like, we get it, Alina, your son died, blah, blah, blah. And now I literally have trauma.
Confirmation.
Blah, blah, blah. Yep.
Confirmation that is what people are thinking.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Do you hear that noise in the background?
It's a fucking car in the city.
Oh, I thought it was Quinn and Aiden.
Yes, this asshole on his fucking motorcycle is Quinn and Aiden saying hello.
Well, I guess I would like to come up with today a response to that inner voice in our head that says trauma, blah, blah. What do we say to ourselves to respond to that? What can we, like, what is the counter argument? What should our response to ourselves sound like?
Oh my God, this guy, can you still?
I think he's really struggling.
He's just being an asshole. He probably like wants to go around. It's Quinn and Aiden. Guys, we are not in.
Okay, Quinn and Aiden.
We get it, guys. Jesus. Okay, so your brain is saying to you, all right, that's enough. You've grieved long enough. Like, we get it. Your son died. Your baby died. Whatever. Like, move on. Tons of babies die every day. Like, get your shit together and move on.
Not even that. Like that and the challenges that you're still dealing with. Like, move on. Move forward.
Mm-hmm.
Let's not go back to that. Your brain is saying
I'm wondering
to
if you have this too. I also have this whole thing where I'm like, people, like, I kind of said it, like, babies die every day. Other people's babies are dead, and other people are at the grocery store. Other people's babies are dead, and they're working full time. Like, other people's babies are dead, and blah, 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 blah. Do you get that?
Yeah.
Do you have that in your head?
I don't have that exact thing. But I honestly sometimes compare myself to other people in my class, quote unquote, of grievers. I'll say to myself, well, that person is doing fine. Like, they're happy and everything is good. Like, they had their baby, which honestly isn't true. But that's
Definitely
what the mean voice in my head says. I like compare myself to other grievers, and I'm like, you're behind, Judith. Move on. Move forward.
Yeah.
We're done. Trauma, blah, blah. Everyone else around you has found a way to find joy and find happiness, and they're buying a this and house, and they have this joyful child, and it's like not causing them any triggers or trauma. Like, be better. You know? Be better. Why aren't you better now? Honestly, I almost feel like that's what it's really saying. It's saying, like, why aren't you better?
Why aren't you better? You should be better by now.
You should be better right now. Right. So I guess that's the type of like thoughts that I have in my head. And it does impact me and it does hurt my feelings. And that's what I'm saying. I want to have a response. When my brain says trauma, blah, blah, then I kind of wonder, like, should I be saying to myself, like, no, not trauma, blah, blah. Maybe I should say, like,
honestly, I love this topic, but I'll tell you right now, I don't know what to say. I have not been able to find something to say that minimizes the sound of that nasty voice in my head. I have not found it. And this is something I've been working on in therapy, and I've tried a couple of different options and none of them stick. Nothing helps. Nothing helps. Some of the things I've tried are like, you're doing the best you can, but then that voice says, but you could be doing better. The best you can is not enough, right? Like, I'll say stuff like, you know, this is objectively the worst thing that a human being can experience, and you are literally not meant to survive this biologically. and then that voice says, you're saying this is worse than the Holocaust? And then I'm like, okay, fine. It's not that bad. You're right. There are things that are worse. I don't know. I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say. What do you say to that voice?
Because I want to say, which is something you and I have said to each other in the past, which is like, this is really bad. Your life is really bad. Your life is really hard. But I know that in the moments when I say those, it doesn't feel good because I'm like, well, it's not that bad because I don't like, I feel like I discount that. But I do think that like for a long time that was helpful for me to say to you, your life is really bad. No one wants to be you. Like no one wants to trade spots with you. You got the worst luck in the draw.
Maybe actually part of the reason we're struggling with this extra right now is because we're actually sometimes happy.
Right. Yeah.
So like it's almost less comforting to be like, your life's really bad. Because I look at my life and I'm like in a comfortable apartment with a partner I love and getting married and blah, 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 blah. And like my life's not that bad.
Right.
Anymore. But
maybe the thing to say to ourselves is that's like acknowledge the voice. Say like that's a voice, Judith, that you say to yourself when you're feeling exasperated with how difficult things are. Let's just acknowledge that that's what that voice is. Yeah, we know that voice. That's your voice of self-doubt. That's a voice that is self-harming. That's a voice that is unkind. And just say like, okay, trauma, blah, blah. And then the other side, you say like, oh, that's a mean voice. Yeah. Maybe just acknowledge.
I like that because I think I have done something similar. The other thought like this that pops into my mind when I'm feeling really awful is I hate my life.
Oh, all the time.
I hate my life.
All the time.
I hate it.
Alina,
I want to be
last
done.
week I was at the beach, which is quite literally my favorite place in the entire world. My child was like splashing in the waves. You heard me. I was having the time of my life. And then in my head, at the same time, when I was like so happy, I thought, I hate my life. I don't want to live anymore. I don't want to be alive.
I hate my life. I can't do this anymore. I'm done.
Don't want to live.
I'm sick of it.
I don't want to live.
And it can happen 5 minutes after the happiest thing, and I'm so joyful. And then I'll just, in a quiet moment, sit down and be like, I fucking hate this life.
Yeah.
And I think that to your point about like just saying that's an unkind voice, that's a piece of me that's really suffering. That is what I say about that voice, which is that is not actually how I feel.
I say that too.
That is how I feel right now. Yes. But that does not mean I actually hate my life. Like, and I'm able to hold in one hand actually actively hating my life, and in the other hand, like that it will pass and I won't always hate my life, and I don't actually hate my life.
It's the same. When that voice comes in my head, I don't want to live anymore. I want to die. I want this to be over with. I'm miserable. I tell myself that voice means you're hurting. Yeah, you are hurting right now. Things are really hard. Yeah, this is really hard. You're really hurting. Like my brain can't process the amount of pain that I'm in, and that's why it's saying it. But it's saying it to alarm you, to like raise a flag that like things right now, Judith, are really hard. But I'm able to somehow kind of live with that. And part of me wonders if I could say that to myself in these trauma blah 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 moments. If I should say to myself like, yeah, that's that voice, that's that unkind voice, that's the voice telling you things are really hard. But you know that, Judith. So this isn't really new news. You know that. Or maybe that's the voice where I say to myself like, yeah, that's the exasperated voice. Like, yeah, you are tired and sick of it. Like, yeah, this sucks. You're tired and sick of it.
It is really hard to grieve for the rest of your life. That's really hard, and it's unfair.
It kind of reminds me of like when I was tired, like when I was running track in high school. I was like running cross country, which was never my skill set. Like I don't really 100% know how I got roped into that. I actually do, which is a funny story. But my friend Aviva invited me to go on like this retreat, and she like didn't really mention that it was a cross country retreat, or maybe she did, but all I heard was retreat. So like I showed up for this retreat in Big Bear. And we ran 3 times a day, probably like 10 or 15 miles a day. And I was like, what did I just sign up for? Apparently I'd signed up for the cross country team because I'm such a like pleaser and I didn't want to disappoint my team or let them down. I stayed on cross country for the entire year. And it was like, I'm not a runner. I'm like 5 feet tall. Like I never run a mile in my life. And then like all of a sudden I went on this retreat and I remember they were like, Judith, now we're going to run up the mountain. And it was a ski mountain. Like you're supposed to ski down. And I'm like running up under the chairlift. And I'm like, there is something fundamentally like very wrong. And that's how I ended up on the cross country team. But which is kind of how I ended up in the choir too. But that's a story for another time. And I don't sing either, so I like have a bad voice. Let's put that to the side. But the point is that when I'm running,
It
or when I
reminds
would
you of
run,
when you were running track.
when I was running track, which I shouldn't have been doing in the first place, my voice in my head would be like, I'm so tired. Why am I doing this? Only one more lap, Judith. One more lap. Okay, I know you're tired. Okay, just one more lap. One more lap. I kind of feel like that's what my brain is telling me when I say trauma, blah, blah. I feel like the response to that is like, okay, just one more lap. Like, we get it. You are tired. Like, you're still running and this is annoying and you don't want to, and it's hot. Like, you know, like I kind of feel like I should treat it like I do when I'm working out.
I actually love that. Are you a genius?
I might be. When I'm right, I'm right.
I think that might work. Just
Every
one
time,
more lap.
Just one more lap. Like, and also part of it is like the acknowledgement of like, yeah, you're running. This sucks. You're working out. Like, blah, no, blah. Like it doesn't. No one likes it, you know.
Yeah.
But then
And
you're
you know
like, well, I'll
what?
feel
It's
good when I'm
what's
done.
the same. It's the same with working out as it is with grieving. Is facing the grief is the same as actually exercising, which is it's good for you, but it doesn't feel good.
Yeah, but
Does
you
not
know
feel
that
good.
when you're done, you know that you'll feel really good and you'll have like all those endorphins, you know.
Yeah, it's true.
So you
It's
just kind of
true.
have to like tell yourself, yeah, trauma, blah blah. One more lap. Oh,
You can do this. One more lap.
one more lap. I
Now,
used to.
what do we say to the people in our lives who also feel trauma, blah blah blah, about our trauma?
I would say
Fuck
like
you.
you
No,
should
just
probably
kidding.
work with a therapist because this is not my problem, and I don't want to hear about it. I'm sorry that it puts you. I felt like I did say to my mom. I did say to her, I was like, I'm sorry that like this puts you in a dark spot. Like that must be hard, but
It must be
this is
so
my
hard.
life, and I'm gonna continue to talk about it. And you should probably listen in if you want to hear about the medium, but you don't. You know, like I feel like this is something that I would say to the people in our lives, like, yeah, you are tired. You should get a therapist, get on medication. Like this sucks.
Yeah. And like
And
if you are genuinely like overwhelmed and unable to handle caring for me in my grief, please feel
take a
free
break.
to take a break, take a step back. You have the luxury of not having to
Yeah.
face this every second of the day. Do that. Just don't be a jerk in the meantime to me, and take care of your own shit.
Well, one thing I'll add is that my husband, like I said, has been grieving intensely, in his own way. I think that's just the best way to put it. I'm sure you could put all sorts of labels on it if you want, but that's the way I'm going to put it. And
Listeners
one
are
thing,
hearing the subtext. They're like, wow, her husband's in bad shape.
but what I would say is that you would think that me, who has gone through such intense grief myself, would be compassionate and understanding and patient and loving and kind and supportive. And I can tell you from being that person who has gone through it myself, it is so hard supporting someone who is grieving. I
Mhm.
have trouble being patient myself. I feel frustrated all the time. Like I just want to move forward from this chapter myself to my own husband who is going through an experience that I know is so difficult. And like this is what I would say to those people who are supporting grieving people. I'd say like, we are only human. And I would say like, as humans, this is how you're going to feel: frustrated, irritated, desperately wanting to move forward from this chapter because it's hard and it doesn't feel good. And it's a reminder of the things that you've already faced and worked through. And now you got to do it again. And it sucks. And they're grumpy and it's hard. And I would say like, well, you're like, the only thing you can say is like, yeah, as humans, we are fundamentally flawed. And
Yeah.
I'm a fundamentally like hypocritical, flawed human myself because I feel like I'm desperately asking the people around me to be patient and supporting me. Well, I know myself, I'm exasperated and exhausted supporting someone else grieving in my life.
Yeah. It's true.
That's all I gotta
That
say
is
about
very
that.
true.
And that's all I got to say about that.
Well, I'm
Well,
tired. Trauma, blah, blah, blah,
trauma,
has
blah,
just
blah.
been coming on up, rearing its ugly head as it does. Trauma, blah, blah,
As it
blah.
does. In
So
other
I
news,
guess
last
we're
night I got
back.
started on your wedding present, and it is so epic.
Yay.
I think that I took it to the next level.
I
And
can't
right now
wait.
it's only in my brain. But I got started on it in my brain last night.
Oh yeah, nice.
And I'm
Very
excited.
good.
To all of our wonderful new friends, we want to hear from you. Email us at aslongasimlivingpodcast@gmail.com and follow us on Instagram at aslongasimlivingpodcast. We'll get back to you as soon as our grieving brains allow.
Yay!